Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. To those of you that are new here, welcome. I see many new, I see some new names on my message board. I also see a lot of familiar names as well, too. So I'm glad to see many of you have come back again, too. So the way that these webinars work, you create them with your questions, and each week is a little bit different, although sometimes we'll cover some similar themes from week to week, but because they're created by your questions, it's always a little bit different. And I'll answer them to the best of my abilities. Sometimes I get stumped. There are some things I don't know, and I'm glad to admit that when that happens. But also sometimes I get some new insights or ideas from some of your questions that I look into, and some things that might even influence how I work with my own patients here at the Healing Arts Partnership in Seattle. I am doing a recording of tonight's webinar. And so tomorrow, or if you happen to miss something, you want to be able to look at it again, tomorrow you'll get an email from me somewhere around 6:30 in the morning Seattle time, so that's Pacific Standard Time. Look for that email, and it'll have a link to the recording, okay? We are doing 2 more webinars, at least that's what I plan on. There's tonight and then 2 more after it before Christmas time. Although it looks like we got a little bit of a light turnout tonight, so we'll see. People are still interested in doing this as we head into Christmas, okay? Yeah, we'll see how that winds up going. But I anticipate at this time being able to do this one and 2 more in the month of December. So the way that you write your questions to me is there's a box over there on the right-hand side. That is my right hand. Over on the right-hand side that you could go ahead and write the question to me. The thing I ask about when you write your question is that you only hit the enter key one time. Keep in mind that each time that you press the enter key, it actually sends a separate question to me. And I try to be able to read these questions. And if you start sending them in too many pieces, then it gets hard for me to follow, okay? I also will post your questions on the screen so others that are watching the live version of this can see. Sometimes it gets a little bit hard to read those questions in the recorded version. So I will also be reading them too, all right? And so I think that takes care of the business end of things. Let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and take the first question here. Hello, Jackie. Let's see. Great evening to you, Dr. Marty. Every webinar as you appear, I immediately think his skin looks great. He must be very healthy. Let's see. I put the replay from my mom. She said, Dr. Marty looks like he just had a facial. Jackie, thank you. I assure you, I have not just had a facial. So, it's the benefit of having a camera that maybe not is the highest quality, so I look better on camera maybe than what I do in person, but I appreciate that. Let's see. So my question is, I have Lyme, Babesia, Bartonella, and Candida. My skin looks so unhealthy and bad in various ways. This makes me feel like I look terrible. I'm trying to eat less sugar and no yeast, but would you please advise any vegan food, supplements, etc. to help with skin problems? Also regarding pain and fatigue, can eating too much chocolate make my pain and fatigue worse within 24 hours? Let me just break this down into the first part here. Okay, and then I think there's a second. There's another question that followed, another screen I'll put up, but let me answer your first question. Okay, so in terms of, I'm trying to think of the response to your first question here. So first of all, about skin, Lyme can be hard on skin, and that is because what gives our skin our tone, and so it doesn't look like a lot of wrinkles, for instance, is connective tissue. Connective tissue is fibrous material that holds organs together, holds blood vessels together, and actually holds our tissues, our skin together too. And unfortunately, Lyme, in its quest to survive in us, likes to bury itself in tissues. It likes to escape from blood that is high in oxygen, and because oxygen can kill Lyme, and it likes to move into tissues that don't have good blood flow. So it makes enzymes to bury itself, to burrow deep into our tissues, okay? So it even makes enzymes that can decrease our connective tissue, the tissues that hold things together and give our skin its kind of tone that it has too. So that's one thing that can happen. Also, when you're on antibiotics for Lyme, there is the possibility you can get too many yeast living in your intestines. Those yeast release toxins that interact with your skin that lead to more acne, pimples, even skin rashes as well too, okay? So one thing you want to do is make sure you're well hydrated, drink lots of water. That helps increase skin tone to a degree. You may also want to help build that connective tissue up. And there's a supplement you can take. It's called hyaluronic acid. I got to figure out how to spell it. Hyaluronic. Hyaluronic acid is one of the building blocks for connective tissue, okay? And I can't remember off the top of my head how to take it, but that is a supplement you could use for that, all right? And then, in terms of yeast, you've got to do things to control it. Back to the hydration. How much water do you take? Generally you want to have about a good ideal amount of water for somebody to help detox, support the skin would be around 1/2 ounce of water per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, that would mean you want to get 75 ounces of water in a day, basically. Okay? All right. Let's see here. Second part. Also, regarding pain and fatigue, can eating too much chocolate make my pain and fatigue worse within 24 hours? So it depends on what kind of chocolate. If you are having dark chocolate, that tends to mean it doesn't have sugar added. Milk chocolate has a lot of sugar. Sugar feeds your yeast and can make things worse. So if you're doing dark chocolate, I don't think there's a limit on what you can do with that, at least based on what I've seen in my practice, okay? All right, then I think you have a third part of your question. You say, I feel addicted and need it when depressed or upset. I take 500 milligrams of curcumin 2 or 3 times daily. While increasing help with inflammation, fatigue, should I take 2 pills at once or separate 500 milligrams every few hours? Dr. Marty, webinars are a true blessing for so many sick people. Thank you. You're welcome. And thank you for your comments about my skin. I appreciate that. So for inflammation, as many of you know from being in my webinars over time, inflammation in Lyme is triggered by the immune system reacting to the Lyme germs and releasing a group of chemicals called cytokines, okay? So cytokines are good and bad. Cytokines basically are made by white blood cells to turn the immune system on. So cytokines made by white blood cells cause more white blood cells to be made. They help draw those white blood cells to where the infection is, and they help them work better at getting rid of infection. However, in Lyme, the immune system makes too many cytokines. It keeps trying harder and harder. It doesn't do a good job getting rid of Lyme, but it just tries harder and harder. Eventually, it makes too many cytokines, all right? And so too many cytokines are where the problem is. Too many cytokines give you most of what we call Lyme symptoms. So they make it so you can't think, they make you hurt, they give you fatigue, they disturb your sleep, they interfere with how your hormone systems work. I mean, I can go down the list of what we call Lyme symptoms and Lyme problems, and the majority of those are related to excess cytokines, okay? All right, so what can lower those? Well, curcumin is great. I like using curcumin. I like using a liposomal variety of curcumin. Liposomal means it's microscopically wrapped in fat to increase its absorption, okay? And so you can do up to 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. So you're doing 500 milligrams 2 times a day or 3 times a day. What you could do is even double that. Go up to 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. That's one thing, okay? If that's not working well enough, then the other thing that can sometimes help is to use glutathione. So glutathione is a very powerful antioxidant that is made in every one of our cells to repair injury. As an antioxidant, it also helps decrease oxidizing agents that tell white blood cells to make cytokines, okay? So curcumin works by getting inside of white blood cells, blocking cytokine production. Glutathione stands outside the white blood cells, and it limits the ordering, the oxidizing agents that are telling the white blood cells to make cytokines, okay? So if you, the other thing that glutathione is useful for is it's used by the liver as one of the key detox chemicals that the liver uses to pull toxins out. And if you pull toxins out, they're going to be less likely to trigger cytokines too, because toxins trigger cytokines, okay? So I would add glutathione into what you're doing too, and you could do 500 milligrams once or twice a day. If you're going to do glutathione, you need to do a liposomal variety too. Remember, that's microscopically wrapped in fat to increase its absorption. Glutathione that is not liposomal is just not that well absorbed. And the product that I like for the glutathione is a product made by Research Nutritionals called Tri-Fortify. They have an orange and a watermelon flavor. Okay, it's flavored because glutathione is rich in sulfur, like bad eggs are rich in sulfur, right? And so it's a way of kind of camouflaging the taste on those, okay? So those are some things that you might want to take a look at. And if you're looking for other ideas, let me just do a quick screen share here. The Treat Lyme book. I think many of you are familiar with this. This is where you've gone to sign up for the webinar, for instance, some of you. All right, so take a look in my chapters and under the chapters tab, and I would look under the chapter called Herxheimer and Cytokines. I probably could have even just called it inflammation, but there is an article that I wrote about cytokines and gives you even more ideas about how to lower them and does a great job describing what they are too. That's this article called Control Cytokines, A Guide to Fix Lyme Symptoms and the Immune System. Okay, so you'll find that in my online Treat Lyme book. All right, and that's at treatlyme.net. And again, I think many of you are familiar with this site. Okay, all right, so let me go back here. All right, there we are. All right, Jackie, thank you for that question, and good luck to you. All right, hello, Kobe. Let's see. Get your message posted here. Let's see. Will minocycline and Tindamax kill all forms of spiro and relapsing fever, not just Borrelia burgdorferi? I think that's what you mean by Borrelia B, that are in the brain. What dose and length of time would be expected? What would be a third antibiotic to add? Have you any experience with DNA Connections lab, Lyme urine test? All right, let me start with the DNA Connections part of your test. So DNA Connections has done a great job of marketing their testing to naturopathic community and a limited number of integrative medicine doctors. I don't use them. I actually have great concerns about that lab. So what the problem is, I've been getting, so in where I work here in Seattle, I tend to be a doctor that if patients are having a hard time and they've been working with naturopaths or other doctors, they sometimes will come see me to get another opinion. Okay, so I can be a referral doctor in a sense, right? And so I often will have people that come in having seen naturopaths. And again, DNA Connections has done a great job marketing their tests in the naturopathic doctor community. So I get people coming in to see me with the tests from DNA Connections. And the DNA Connections test would suggest, for instance, that they're positive for Bartonella, Babesia, and Lyme. And yet, when I start talking to these patients, a lot of them don't have any symptoms of the Babesia that DNA Connections says they have, and they don't have any symptoms of Bartonella that DNA Connections says they have. So I just don't know about the validity of the test. So because of that, I actually took the time to call DNA Connections. And I believe it was the lab director that I was talking to. And I asked them a simple question. Have you ever done validation studies? All right. So what a validation study is when you've come up with a way of doing a test, you make sure that your test actually does what you say it does, what you think it does. Okay. So you basically, you go get known samples of somebody, a bunch of patients, for instance, that have Bartonella or Babesia, and you know that it shows up in their urine. Okay, somebody has validated, somebody has shown that they have these infections. Then you use your test technique to see if you can find the samples that are known or not known to have the illness. Okay, that's called a validation study. IGeneX has done it for all of their tests. Advanced Laboratory Services, the lab that has done the Lyme disease blood culture, has done it for its test. Good labs will go out and do validation studies. Well, guess what? DNA Connections has not done any validation studies. All right. So when I hear that, I'm thinking, stay away from it. And if I look at what I see with my patients, I just don't see that their test results correspond with what I clinically am seeing in a patient too. So I don't trust the lab. I don't know whether it's valid or not. It might be, might not be, but they've never done any of the legwork that would prove to me as a physician that their test is actually useful or is accurate. Okay. So I refuse to use it actually for that reason. Let's see. In terms of your other part of your question. So minocycline and Tindamax in terms of Lyme, of Borrelia burgdorferi, will treat those two together will treat all three forms of the Lyme germ and even do a good job of removing biofilm. All right. So the Lyme germ comes in three forms. It comes as a spirochete. That's the corkscrew-looking thing that many of you have seen. It also has a way that it will morph and move inside of your cells and lose its coat. That's called intracellular Lyme. And then there's a third form, which is a microscopic cyst form of the germ. In addition, Lyme has the ability to grow a slime layer over itself called a biofilm. And that biofilm can act as a barricade to keep some antibiotics out and also to keep the immune system out. All right. Now, when we look at, there's been some studies done about Tindamax and on Petri dish experiments, and it looks like Tindamax can break down about 95% of biofilm. And in addition, Tindamax does a good job of removing cyst Lyme. Tindamax likely treats intracellular Lyme too, okay? Minocycline treats both intracellular Lyme and spirochete Lyme. So you've got a treatment here that covers all three forms of the Lyme germ and in addition removes 95% of biofilm. It's a pretty comprehensive treatment, okay? So the minocycline also is an extremely fat-soluble antibiotic, and things that are fat-soluble get into the brain, all right? Brain has a protective layer around it called the blood-brain barrier, which effectively is a layer of fat that keeps medicines and other toxins out. But minocycline is one of the most fat-soluble medicines we have. Tindamax can do a pretty good job of getting in there as well, too. The only thing that you might add as a third antibiotic, but you don't need to because this is a pretty comprehensive treatment, might be to add either an amoxicillin or something called a cefuroxime. Those work by attacking the spirochete by effectively punching holes in the covering. So that as it develops holes, it can't repair itself, and basically it will, as it grows, it bursts itself and it dies, okay? Minocycline, I like using at 100 milligrams twice a day. Tindamax, it all depends on how much a person weighs. For somebody that's 100 pounds or less, I'll do 500 or 250 milligrams twice a day. For somebody that's between 100 and 150 pounds, I'll do 500 milligrams twice a day. And for somebody that is 150 pounds or heavier, I'll do 500 milligrams 3 times a day. Now, the way I like using my Tindamax is I like pulsing them. So I like using them 4 days on, 3 days off. The reason I do that is it's quite effective that way, but also it decreases liver toxicity because Tindamax can be a drug that's kind of hard on the liver. So if you use it by pulsing it, you're not constantly stressing the liver, but also you get a pretty good kill that way too. The minocycline I would use continuously in this type of regimen. All right. Amoxicillin, if you were to do that, I'd do about 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. Cefuroxime, 500 milligrams twice a day. All right. Thank you for that question, Kobe. Good luck. Oh, let me just show you guys something here too. I'm going to do a quick screen share. So these concepts of strategies, by taking a look at my chapter called Infection Treatment Plans. One of the articles in the Infection Treatment Plans chapter is this one called Kills or a Lyme Disease Antibiotic Guide. In here, I talk about the 3 forms. I talk about various combinations of antibiotics that you might want to use. I even talk about how to use oral antibiotics as an equivalent to an intravenous or IV antibiotic treatment. Okay, so take a look at that article. That actually is a free read. Okay, you don't have to pay a subscription to read that one. All right. Go back here to that question. All right, so let's see here. Ciara, hi. Hi, Doc. Let's see. 3rd time on and use your info from my own GP in Ireland. Ah, great. Been on doxycycline 400 milligrams for 3 weeks, plus your recommended herbal supplements. Some improvement, but not lots. 6 months ago, stroke-like feeling, acute onset, and fever. I have constant face pain, started on left now, spread to entire face. It feels like burning acid, numbness, tingling, ice feeling, also red sore eyes. When it's at its worst, it's dizziness, eyesight blurred, and pressure in head. Is this Babesia or just Lyme? I'm in so much pain, nothing takes it away. If I eat something like sugar, then pain gets worse. Why is this? Okay, I have to go back. I want to bear with me, everyone. I want to go back and reread this so I make sure I totally understand what's happening here. Let's see. 3rd time on use. Okay, so see a few things, and I'll try to answer to the best, but it's hard to get a full feel of what's happening just with this kind of a brief question. Okay, so when the kind of pain that you're having, which is that the burning kind of pain, let's see, how do you describe it here? Burning acid feeling, numbness, tingling ice, red sore eyes. Those are all nerve injury kind of symptoms, okay? Neurologic injury. And when it's at its worst, dizziness, eyesight blurred, and pressure in the head. Again, those are nerve injury kind of symptoms, okay? So I do think you've got a degree of nerve injury or Lyme, you can call it that. The other thing, in terms of whether it's Babesia or not, I cannot tell by what you've written here. But the symptoms that would make me wonder about Babesia are air hunger, so feeling can't get enough air in from time to time. Babesia also often gives drenching night sweats, panic attacks or anxiety, racing or skipping of the heart, headaches here in the front of the head. Sometimes people will have repeat deja vu experiences when they have Babesia. So those are some things that make me wonder when somebody has Babesia. I usually don't associate the neuro part of that, okay? Bartonella is one of the co-infections, so they can have a lot of neurologic symptoms. So Bartonella is known for pain on the balls of the feet, neuropathies. Bartonella can often be part of severe difficulty with thinking. Psychiatric issues like anxiety or depression can be part of Bartonella. Bartonella gives a lot of neurologic hypersensitivity as well, too. Those hypersensitivities can be things like light sensitivity, touch sensitivity, sound sensitivity, okay? So those are things that would make me think of Bartonella. And I'm wondering, just from what you've described here, this neurologic picture, if they may be Bartonella as part of this. The one thing you might want to consider doing is, if you could work with your primary care doctor, would be to consider, instead of working with Banderol Cemento, when you said you're working herbally, I think you mean you're working with the germ killers Banderol Cemento, also called Otoba bark extract, cat's claw. Those are the 2 herbs that can work as well as prescription antibiotics at killing Lyme, but they don't always work. If that is what you're doing, you say herbal recommendations, I would consider probably stopping those and see, in addition to the doxycycline, if your doctor would prescribe rifampin. Rifampin is a 300 milligram pill. You do 2 pills 1 time a day. And what that does is it's great it's a great drug for treating Bartonella. So you turn this into a Bartonella treatment then, and the doxycycline helps it to get rid of Bartonella. But it also is a good anti-cyst agent for Lyme. It treats intracellular Lyme, and then coupled with that doxycycline, you got a nice treatment too. The other thing you might consider doing is take that doxycycline and substitute its brother or sister called minocycline at 100 milligrams twice a day, because it's more fat soluble. It gets into the brain a little bit better, okay? So those are some things to think about. The other thing you might want to think about, if you had marked worsening, I always, when people start to get worse after they've been on antibiotics, even herbal antibiotics, I'm always interested if they might have developed too many yeast in the intestines. The issue when you have too many yeast in the intestines is that the immune system sees them and reacts by making more cytokines, right? And I talked about cytokines tonight being the major thing that gives you Lyme symptoms. The other thing that too many yeast in the intestines do is they release a toxin called gliotoxin, which is a neurotoxin, okay? So you can get a lot worse nerve symptoms sometimes when you get too many yeast too, okay? So I'm going to do a quick screen share here. Sarah, one other thing you may want to consider, you have a complex picture, and you can only write so much down in a question here, and I may be missing something to give you the best advice. You may want to consider actually doing an online visit with me that we can do using Skype. I'll show you where you can find some information about that, but I'll visit with people from around the world. I have a number of people in the UK and in Ireland as well. And I do visit with people that way too. If we visit that way, I can I can ask a lot of questions so I can get a better feel of what is happening with you. And then I do write a visit note that you can share with your physician and see if they'll help you with some of those prescriptions that we might come up with, okay? But that would probably be the best way I can give you the best approach here. But let me just show you a few things to take a look at here, all right? I'm going to do a quick screen share. Okay, so if you want to know how you figure out if you have yeast, take a look at my chapter called Yeast. And in this chapter is an article about how do you diagnose yeast. It's called A Silent Problem. Do you have yeast? Take a look at that article. If you do, take a look at my article called Kills Yeast, a Brief Guide. So I talked to you about how to figure that out there, all right? In terms of whether you might have Babesia or Bartonella, again, I think you could have Bartonella from what you briefly described there. Take a look at my chapter called How to Diagnose. And there's a couple articles you might want to look at here. One is it could be Bartonella or Babesia. That's the main article that I would look at to figure out whether you have Bartonella or Babesia. I make my decisions based on what your symptoms are, okay? And then this other one called How to Diagnose Babesia. You can look at both of those, okay? And then finally, if you do want to visit with me online, take a look at this tab here. I'm kind of bringing my mouse over it, called Online Consult. Go to this page, read the whole page, all the way down to the bottom here, because it tells you how my online consults work, and see if that's something you'd be interested in. I'd be glad to visit with you that way too. Okay? All right. So go back here. All right, there we are. I think I'm back again. All right, yep. All right, Sarah, good luck to you, and thank you for that question. Hello, Louise. Let's see here. Hello, Dr. Ross. I have been on Malarone for about a month. I am wondering a couple of things. I have been breaking out with cold sweats at random times, day or night. Is this a side effect or a herx? 2, how long does one actually need to be on Malarone in order to ameliorate Babesia? All right. So those random sweats can be part of Babesia. Sometimes they'll get worse as you start killing Babesia, okay? In terms of Malarone, I find that it is effective about 85% of the time, so it's not 100% effective, okay? And usually if it's working by 1 to 2 months into a Babesia treatment, you should start seeing improvement in your Babesia symptoms. All right. So I explained what those Babesia symptoms were earlier tonight, but those Babesia symptoms should be getting better for you. All right. And if you missed that part of the webinar, you can either read my article that I just showed you a few minutes ago about Babesia symptoms, or listen to the recording again tomorrow. All right. So in terms of getting rid of Babesia entirely, again, by 1 to 2 months, you should start seeing improvement if it's the right drug for you. All right. And there's many other options you can use besides Malarone. And I've written about those in the Treat Lyme book. If you need that article, go look at the chapter called How to Our Treatments. And in that chapter, I describe other ways to treat Babesia. All right. There's quite a few of them. And take a look there. But if you're not having, you should be having some improvements by 1 to 2 months. All right. And usually I'll treat for 4 to 5 months. The reason we treat 4 to 5 months is it's best. We treat based upon the life cycle of a red blood cell. So Babesia lives in your red blood cells. And when a red blood cell is made, it will live for about 90 to 120 days before it's destroyed. And we find it best to get rid of Babesia to treat through the whole life cycle of one red blood cell. That's what the rationale is, okay? All right. Thank you for that question. Good luck to you. Let's see. I saw that. Hi, April. Let's see. I saw that you have used LDI and the jury was out. Do you have any recent updates about effectiveness? So I do LDI now, maybe about 2 or 3 people in my practice. That is it. I was trying it on a number of people to begin with. And so what LDI is, everyone, it's called low dose immunotherapy. The idea is that we give you an extremely, extremely diluted dose of Lyme parts, basically. And that what it does is it helps alter the immune system so that it is not it's better balanced to react appropriately to Lyme. That's kind of a simplified way of looking at it. What I found in working with it is I was just triggering too severe reaction in many people. Sometimes if you get the dose wrong, people get worse. But over time, what I also felt, I just didn't find good improvements. It only is manipulating the immune system, and you also have to do things to kill the germ to get rid of it. So there's been only a handful of people that I've seen positive results with. The majority of people I did not see positive results with. So it's generally something I am not doing much of it this time, except for a couple people that did, maybe a few people that did find some benefit for it. Okay. All right. Good luck to you, April. Thank you for that question. So let me just do a quick screen share. So I just gave a very brief description. I actually have a more detailed about what LDI is and specifically what it does to the immune system. If you want to see more about LDI, take a look in my immune system chapter here. And you want to read this article called LDI, Bring on the Regulators. Okay? All right. Hello, Catherine. Let's see. Can chronic Lyme cause insulin resistance? A 3-hour blood sugar test showed this. I'm slim. Could this explain whole body pain, especially after eating, tiredness plus acute brain fog? Was prescribed Actos but didn't tolerate it. Am on protein, vegetarian diet, no carbs or sugar. So, Catherine, I have not seen Lyme trigger insulin resistance. I'm not aware of it doing that. Doesn't mean it can't. I haven't seen that happen. And I've been treating Lyme regularly, actually, since 2004. So treat a lot of Lyme. I just haven't seen that happen before, okay? Whole body pain, especially after eating, and tiredness with acute brain fog. You know, if your symptoms get worse with eating, that often is a sign actually of yeast overgrowth in the intestines. As you give more carbs and food to your yeast, they will then respond. Your immune system makes more cytokines. They release more toxins. People often will get worse. So I'd take a look at the articles I have about yeast overgrowth and see if that applies to you. Okay? All right. Good luck to you. Let's see. Hi, Lisa. Let's see. Hi. How fast does Babesia replicate? And if someone is told they genetically should not take folic acid and then they take it for a prolonged period, what would happen? I'm not sure why they're being told not to take folic acid, so it's hard for me to respond to that question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that part. In terms of Babesia replication, my understanding is it's about once every 24 hours or maybe even more quickly than that. It's a fast replicator, okay? So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Good luck to you, Lisa. Hello, Catherine. Let's see. Can MSM help detox? If so, how much should one take? I don't think of MSM as something that helps with detox. I do think of glutathione, which is used by the liver to remove toxins, as something that helps with detox. I think of alpha lipoic acid and N-acetylcysteine, which are the building blocks for glutathione to help with detox. But I don't think of MSM as being one of those things that does. Thanks for that question. Let's see. Hello, Jackie. Let's see. Yes, we need your information webinars, Dr. Marty. Thank you. Let's see. I've been telling people I meet with Lyme about you, and they are interested. So please keep them. I plan on keeping them. So I don't plan on going away with them. But thank you. I appreciate that comment, Jackie. I think what you may be referring to earlier tonight when I first started the webinar, I said that as we near the Christmas time, I may not have them just then. Okay, depends on whether we have enough participation here or not. So, but my intention is long term. I definitely plan on keeping these going. You might see that Wednesday right before Christmas that depending on what the sign up rate is, I might or might not have it because people have other interests this time of year. All right. Hello, Lori. Let's see. How long on average do your patients stay on antibiotics or antibiotic combos? Just general. Do you take breaks? And if so, how long? And are there herbal combos that you feel pack the same punch as antibiotics? Or do antibiotics always play a part for long-term success? Thanks so much. All right. So, Lori, it's kind of a big question. And let me just give you some general ideas. Okay. So, some factors to consider. So first of all, to get over Bartonella and Babesia, Babesia is 5 months, Bartonella is about 4 to 6 months. Both of those are fast replicating germs. And so therefore, you do not want to stop your treatment for even brief periods of time when you're in the middle of one of those treatments because they come back fast, okay? So when you are treating Bartonella or you're treating Babesia, I do not believe in pulsing the antibiotics. I know some of my colleagues do it. I just doesn't make any sense, okay? Those are fast replicators. So if you're starting and stopping antibiotics, the germs will come back. All right, so for those, you want to use a minimum, Bartonella usually about 4 to 6 months. So I'm going to use antibiotics pretty continuously during that duration, all right? Now, once you get your, once you are done treating a co-infection, you can take an antibiotic break, even if you still are in a Lyme germ treatment. And the reason you can stop Lyme germ antibiotics when you're treating is it replicates really slow. By some estimates, every 4 weeks to every 8 months, Lyme replicates. And therefore, if you stop antibiotics in the middle of a Lyme germ treatment, stuff is not coming back that fast. So I sometimes will stop antibiotics for 1 or 2 months just to give a person a break. Okay. Now, what's the best ways to treat Lyme? Well, or Lyme and co-infections. Okay, so with the Lyme germ, prescription oral antibiotics will work about 85 to 90% of the time to get somebody well. Now, well may mean not 100% well, but better, okay? The 2 herbs called Otoba bark extract, which is sold as a product called Banderol, and cat's claw, which I like using as a product called Cemento. There were Petri dish experiments done looking at those two herbs for Lyme about 6 years ago that showed great killing of Lyme on the Petri dish and also removal of biofilms too. Based on those experiments, I started working with those products in my practice, and I find that those two herbs for the Lyme germ work 85 to 90% of the time. So that is something you could change to at any time for the Lyme germ, okay? When it comes to Bartonella or it comes to Babesia, prescription options for both of those will work about 85% of the time. Any one that you go on will work about 85% of the time. All right. The herbal options there are for both will work somewhere around 70 to 75% of the time. So generally, for those germs, I prefer prescriptions. Now, that doesn't mean that's where my patients want to go. Many of my patients say that they don't want prescriptions. And in that case, we'll work with the herbal options, okay? So if you are interested in reading further about what I've just described, let's go here. I got to do a quick screen share. Treatment plans chapter. And one of the things you want to look at is Kills Babesia, a brief guide. In here, I talk about both prescription and herbal options to treat Babesia, okay? And then the article below there, the Kills Bartonella, a brief guide. Take a look there. Again, in that article, I describe various options you have to treat Bartonella with either herbs or prescriptions, okay? And then finally, as I showed you earlier tonight, there's this article called A Lyme Disease Antibiotic Guide that also has in it information about how to use both prescriptions and herbs to kill the Lyme disease germ as well too. Okay? All right. All right, Lori, thank you for that question. Good luck to you. Let's see. Hello, Lori, again. Let's see. And have you ever treated reverse T3 syndrome? And do you see this can be tied to Lyme disease in any way? I'm working on lowering mine now with the help of a functional medicine doctor. Thank you. Okay. So let's talk about, so reverse T3 is a test, a form of thyroid that I test for when I'm looking at somebody with thyroid illness. All right. So let me try to describe thyroid. All right. So many of you may be familiar when your doctors are, so your thyroid is an organ that sits here in your neck, and it makes two forms of thyroid hormone. One form is called T4, and the other one is called T3. All right, 90% roughly of what your thyroid makes is T4, 10% is T3. All right, these forms of thyroid get out into the tissues and out in the body and your organs, and actually in the cells, either in the organs or in the cells, that T4 is all converted into T3. And what is active in your cells is T3, all right? T3 is what gives the metabolic rate at which our cells run. It helps cell metabolism, cell function, all right? So the active form of thyroid is T3. So so T4 is a prohormone, all right? It's actually what is turned into T3. So that's one way that they're different. The other way that T4 and T3 are different is T4 has 4 iodine particles and T3 has 3. That's why they're 4 and 3, okay? All right, so your doctors in evaluating thyroid may look at T4, they may measure a T3 level. They're likely to measure a chemical made by the brain called thyroid stimulating hormone, also known as TSH. Most doctors are taught in medical school that the only test you need to do to look at your thyroid is TSH. All right, the idea is that the brain interprets whether you have enough thyroid. And whether if it thinks you have enough thyroid, depending on how much thyroid it thinks you need, it's going to make TSH, all right? So if the brain thinks that you have low thyroid, you're going to have very high TSH, all right? So low thyroid, low T4, low T3, the brain wants to send more signals to the thyroid, and it will start yelling at the thyroid to make more by making high amounts of TSH, all right? All right. If you have too much thyroid, if your thyroid gland here is making too much or you're taking too many pills of thyroid, the brain will start whispering to the thyroid, trying to get it to slow down. So it will make low levels of TSH, okay? There is an opinion that for most people, or that for all people, that the only thing we really need to measure is TSH. If the brain thinks your thyroid is normal, it's normal, all right? But that's been called into question by many of us, including myself, who think that we may have another condition and a way of looking at thyroid, which is the brain in measuring TSH and looking at TF4 levels. If you just measure TSH and T4, that just gives you a better idea of what's going on centrally up here in the head. But it gives you no idea of what is going out on the tissues. Are you getting enough T3 made out in the tissues, okay? All right, one other point then. That T4, as I said, has to be converted into T3, okay? But when the body is under stress, one of the things that it will do is to try to slow its metabolism down. And instead of that T4 being converted to T3, it gets converted into reverse T3, all right? Reverse T3 is like a brake. Even though the brain may be making, or the main brain may be signaling the thyroid to make normal T4, and therefore the brain thinks there's enough going on with T4. You have to look at more than T4, because that T4 can either be converted into T3 or reverse T3. If it's being converted into high amounts of reverse T3, that means your body is trying to slow its metabolism down to protect itself, which is going to give you more fatigue, basically, all right? So it's a preservation mechanism, kind of a way of going into hibernation in a sense, okay? So what you want to do is to get that reverse T3 back up, you want to give more T3, all right? Because if you give T3, that's going to kick up metabolism, which is going to have the brain's going to start thinking and try to direct the thyroid more appropriately based on the energy levels that occur from having T3 in. So I like using T3 when I get high levels of reverse T3 to speed metabolism up, trying to run against what the brain is trying to direct the body to do. When the brain gets into a stress state, it tries to send signals to the rest of the body to slow down and go into hibernation. We want to go against that grain, and it's T3 that you want to wind up using for that. All right? Kind of a complicated topic, but anyhow, I hope that helps you look at it. All right? So good doctors that are really looking at this idea of whether you have peripheral thyroid disorder, not just central, but peripheral, should be measuring TSH, free T4, free T3, reverse T3, and a free T3. And also somewhere in your thyroid workup, because Lyme can trigger autoimmune illness, your doctors also ought to be looking to see if you have autoimmune thyroid illness. And that would be to measure something called TPO antibodies, which are elevated in Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And they also ought to be measuring antithyroglobulin antibodies, which would be elevated in Graves' disease, which is another form of autoimmune thyroid illness. Okay? All right. Good luck to you, Lori. Thank you for that question. Hello, Gloria. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. Recently heard that astragalus is contraindicated in Lyme patients. I take it in the winter, which you know. Also, shouldn't our focus on working on keeping a healthy immune system first kill all bugs? So I think it's Buhner, if I'm correct, that doesn't think astragalus is good in Lyme. So Buhner, many of you may know the herbalist, the master herbalist called Buhner, and I think a lot of his ideas are accurate. I'm just not familiar with his work around astragalus and Lyme. I other than knowing, I think he recommends against it. I'm not sure why he recommends against it, Gloria. Okay. So yes, in theory, it would be great if you can turn the immune system on to fight Lyme. And there are things we can do to do that. One of those is get sleep. Okay, so let me stand back. Lyme tries to suppress the immune system, all right? That's one of its survival mechanisms. In addition, the immune system, and trying to get rid of Lyme, acts in a way that turns it off too. It suppresses itself, right? So all those excess cytokines I talked about earlier suppress the immune system, okay? So one of the number one things that you want to do in Lyme is work to lower cytokines. First part of that is get sleep. 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. Now you can wake up once or twice, but as long as you get back to sleep, that's useful. And if you have to use herbs or drugs to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep, get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That degree of sleep helps lower cytokines and can help restore the immune system, okay? Number 2, lower cytokines by taking herbs that lower the cytokines, all right? Number 3, support the adrenal glands. And I like using an herb called ashwagandha, a 400 milligram pill, 2 pills in the morning and 2 pills between 1 and 2. Number 4, be on a good multivitamin because your immune system needs nutrients to run, okay? Those are the basic things you ought to be doing to support your immune system. Sometimes it is also useful to add mushrooms in to support the immune system. They turn on the cells that fight infection. I like using a mushroom mix called the Immune Builder 5 mushroom formula, 1 pill 3 times a day. Another way to stimulate the immune system also is to use something called transfer factors. Transfer factors are proteins made by white blood cells that target the immune system to attack certain germs, okay? Now, these are all great things you can do, all right? But usually for most people, it's not enough just to turn the immune system on because often by the time you're at that point trying to turn the immune system on, Lyme has gained such a foothold that you have to go in and knock the germ down. You have to kill it in addition to doing those things, okay? All right. Thanks for that question, Gloria. Hello, B. Let's see. Hi, Doc Marty. I'm on rifampin 300 milligrams 2 times a day, Bactrim 500 milligrams twice a day, and I just added clarithromycin 500 milligrams twice a day for Lyme and Morgellons. And I'm covered. Am I covered, or do I need to add anything? Taking supplements recommended for SE as well. Also thinking of a consult with you. Cost, can practitioner be on a call? Thanks so much. Okay. So yes, practitioners can be on a call. I have no problem doing that. We can hook as many people in, well, usually about 2 people we can hook into Skype visits. In terms of cost, I don't like describing that here. What you can do is write to Christine. You can do that on my online forum. Or I showed you the site where you can sign up for the consults. Just write to Christine through there. There's a form you can fill out there. Just write to her. She can correspond with you about how these work, how much time will it take, how much is the cost, and all that. Okay? All right. Then, in terms of your treatment, all right, so Morgellons, everyone, is a skin condition where you get skin breakdown. Some people actually get fibers in their skin. They get itchy rashes. And it's a condition that when you do biopsies of the skin, you just can't see anything there. No. Even the fibers, we can't tell quite what they are. What we notice, though, is that it happens in conditions where there's immune suppression. And it so happens that maybe about 90-95% of people with Morgellons actually have Lyme, or the other portion have HIV/AIDS. So Morgellons is a condition of the skin that occurs in immune suppression disorders, okay? So what is helpful is to do treatments at the underlying disorder. So if the underlying disorder is Lyme, you treat the Lyme. And so what I have found also what is helpful in that is being on sulfa antibiotics, okay? So the Bactrim that you're on is the sulfa antibiotic. I often will find it does well with the clarithromycin like you're describing when Morgellons is present. That clarithromycin for Lyme treats intracellular spirochete Lyme. The Bactrim is useful at treating persister cells in Lyme, and rifampin is useful at treating the cyst form of Lyme and intracellular Lyme. That treatment you're on also happens to be a great Bartonella treatment too. But you have covered the Lyme germ adequately, and you've definitely covered Bartonella if you have that too. I don't know why when Lyme manifests with Morgellons, people tend to do better with Bactrim, but that's been what my experience is they do, okay? Now, if you just heard me mention, I said something called persister cell, so let me talk about that real quick. So I think many of you know Lyme lives in you in 3 forms. There's a spirochete, which looks like the corkscrew. Another form of the germ called intracellular Lyme that loses its coat, moves inside of cells. And then there's a third form, a microscopic cyst form of the germ, okay? In addition, Lyme can develop a slime layer called a biofilm that covers it, all right? Now, there are many infections in the world like tuberculosis and leprosy where we have known for some time that those germs are hard to treat because they can turn into persister cells. And many have been wondering, does that happen in Lyme too? All right. So what a persister is it's a form of the germ that actually slows its metabolism way down and effectively goes into hibernation. And when it's hibernating, it ignores the antibiotics around it. So we've been wondering for some time if that happens in Lyme. And about a couple of years ago, researchers at Northeastern University in Boston did some petri dish studies where they were able to show that when Lyme is chronically or constantly exposed to antibiotics on a petri dish, that it will assume a persister state. All right. Now, what they found is 20% of spirochetes take on a persister spirochete form, and 20% of cysts assume a cyst persister form. Okay. So a persister is not like a new fourth form of the germ. It is a phase of a spirochete or a phase of a cyst. Okay. So there's still cysts and there's still spirochetes officially. It's just a different way that they present. All right. There's a spirochete that's gone into hibernation and it's a cyst that has gone into hibernation. Okay. And according to some petri dish experiments out of Hopkins by Dr. Zhang, Bactrim in combination with some antibiotics has been shown to help with persister cells. All right. Many of you may also be aware of the Horowitz studies, where Dr. Horowitz has used a drug called Dapsone. Dapsone also may have effect on persister cells. That may be how it's helping too. Okay. All right. Thank you for that question, B. Hello, Kobe. Let's see. Any thoughts on the Salt C protocol? Should it work in theory to kill all the Lyme and co-infection? So, Salt C protocol, what I have seen with it is it can help maybe about 20 or 30%. I just don't find it to be universally effective. Okay. The other problem with the Salt C protocol, so you have to be on high levels of sodium, is that for some people it's not safe because it can really drive your blood pressure up. If you're going to do the Salt C protocol, make sure you get blood pressure checks probably a week or so after you're on it, and maybe 2 weeks later, just to make sure that you're tolerating it, that your system is tolerating it. But in terms of it being an effective, useful treatment, I just don't find it to be that effective. I think there are some people that do get benefit, but I think the majority of people do not get benefit from it. Okay? All right. Thank you for that question, Kobe. Hello, BSC. I have elevated liver enzymes. I understand this is common with Lyme. Any suggestions? All right. So liver enzymes, everyone, are known as AST and ALT. Those are your liver enzymes. And they have a range of normal. So most labs are going to say that they should be between, let's say, 20 and 40. Okay. Depends on the lab. Each place that does it has a different normal range, but they'll have a range of normal. So for the sake of discussion, let's say a normal AST is somewhere between 10 and 35 for the lab. All right. What I like to do is I'm okay with my liver enzymes getting elevated when somebody's on antibiotics as long as it doesn't go over 2 times the upper end of normal. So that 10 to 35 normal range I just told you about, the upper end of normal is the 35. I'm okay if somebody stays at 70 or below. Many of the antibiotics we use are going to inflame the liver to a degree. The question is you don't want to get it too inflamed because that could lead to scarring down the road. Okay? All right. So it is possible you have elevated liver numbers in Lyme because you're treating it. All right. The other thing, though, that can happen is Lyme can actually give a liver hepatitis, meaning inflammation of the liver sometimes. So I have seen situations where people have way, way high, like 500, 600 ASTs and ALTs. We look to see is there any other cause infectious-wise that does that or any other substances they're taking that do it, and we can't identify anything with testing. And it's that those times that even though I might not normally give antibiotics to somebody with an AST or ALT that is in the 500 range, I have done it before and found that that brings those enzymes down as we get liver inflammation caused by Lyme under control. Okay, so Lyme can sometimes give you a hepatitis, unfortunately. Some things you want to do to protect your liver if you start getting elevated liver enzymes. I like using the glutathione that I talked about tonight a number of times. So glutathione is a very powerful antioxidant that protects, or actually is made in every one of our cells. And its purpose is to repair injury to the cells. It also is used by the liver as a detoxification chemical to pull toxins out, okay? If I've got somebody that's having some liver injury, I'm inclined to use it, and I'll use it at 500 milligrams once or twice a day. I like the liposomal variety that I was telling you about, which is that product called Tri-Fortify, okay? All right. Let me just do a quick screen share here. Like glutathione. Glutathione is a lovely chemical. It has many functions when we treat Lyme. I've got an article written about it you'll find it in a few places, but one place you'll find it is in the detoxification chapter. I call it glutathione, the great fixer. You might want to read more about glutathione here, okay? In terms of if I mention supplements tonight, you're wondering what's a good product, take a look at my store, Marty Ross MD Supplements. What I've tried to do here is to handpick supplements that have the best chance of working for you, basically, all right? So there's a lot of garbage out there in the world of supplements. What I've tried to do is find brands that do a good job of sourcing for the most active ingredients. I've also tried to pick brands here that don't use a lot of artificial fillers that could be harmful to somebody with Lyme, okay? So if you're wanting to know what curcumin I use, take a look here. You can actually go ahead and click on the search function up here, type in the herb that you want. In terms of the glutathione that I carry a Research Nutritionals brand here. This is my Research Nutritionals page. And their product, looks like over here. Their product is the Tri-Fortify. Here's one of them, Tri-Fortify Orange. They also have a product called Tri-Fortify Watermelon. But this is the product that I like using. Okay. All right. Let me go back here. And even though it's the supplement store for my patients, anyone can buy from these supplements. All right. And basically, I offer them as low as I'm allowed to by the manufacturers in terms of the pricing. Anyhow. All right. So, B, I hope that answers your question. Good luck to you. Hello, Simon. Let's see, hi, doctor. How long does it need to be on antibiotics and supplements to see any results? I've been sick over 10 years and started treatment a month ago. Thanks. Thank you. You're welcome. All right. So basically, let me give you kind of the odds in the world of Lyme. Okay. So with an average length of a Lyme germ treatment is 2 years. Right, that's an average. All right. And that means that some people get better in 6 months. Some people take 3 and 4 years. So it just takes time for some people, right? And at the beginning of treatment, you can't tell who's going to take how long. There really aren't any predictors. It doesn't matter that you've had it for 10 years, okay? One of the sickest people I ever saw was a guy that came to see me that 6 months after we started treating with antibiotics, he was done. He was better. He was 100% well. And he had Lyme for about 23 years. So there's no predictors, okay? All right, so then what do we know? How long does it take to turn a corner? Well, actually, a few more things. So an average length of treatment is 2 years. With treatment, what I see is that 90% of people get improvements, and those improvements can range up to 100%. All right, so that means not everyone's going to get better. All right, 10% of people, we just don't know what to do with them. And it's not just me, it's my colleagues as well, too, okay? But if you're in the 90%, your improvements could be up to 100%. You may get 100% well. Maybe you'll get 50% or 70% better, all right? And that's because sometimes Lyme leaves permanent injury. And there's no predictors at the beginning on that either, okay? Then, how long will it take you to turn a corner? Well, one of my colleagues did an office study that he did not publish, but he did present at an ILADS meeting probably about 10 years ago now, I think. And in the study, everyone was placed on Biaxin, which is called clarithromycin, and metronidazole, also known as Flagyl. Biaxin treats intracellular Lyme and spirochete Lyme, and the Flagyl treats cyst Lyme. What he was able to show is that by 3 months of treatment, 30% of people started having improvements. By 6 months of treatment, 60% of people started having improvements. And by 9 months of treatment, 90% of people started having improvements. Okay. So it takes time. And sometimes you're going to go backwards at first, because as you start treating, we can trigger what's called a Herxheimer reaction, which is the immune system sees all those dead bug parts, if you will, and reacts by making more cytokines. All right. So it's not uncommon that you're going to get worse at first sometimes too. Okay. All right. Simon, I hope that answers your question. Good luck to you. Ciara, let's see. You've already sent numerous emails. I will check with my receptionist tomorrow, see what's happening with those. But let me tell you what, if you would also send it to me directly, she's usually good at getting back to people, so I have to check in with her and see. My email is docmarty, DOCMARTY, at, this is, the second part's really long and ridiculous, but it's at the Healing Arts Partnership.net. So TheHealingArts and then partnership.net. Okay. Now, please, everyone, this is for Ciara to write me. Please don't start sending me a bunch of emails. Okay. I'm only going to respond to hers, basically. All right. All right. Thank you, Ciara. Good luck to you. Bye-bye. Hello, Barbara. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. My 15-year-old has Lyme, Mycoplasma, Babesia, Bartonella, high Epstein-Barr virus, yeast, SIBO, and being treated with clarithromycin and metronidazole for 6, I think that's months, with no help. Also took Xifaxan for SIBO, no help, and she is very ill. Also has mold issues and band headaches and fatigue. Can you help with treatment? Yes, I can, but I need to actually I need to talk with you, because she's got so many moving parts here that I need to figure out where to step in. And the only way I can figure that out is to ask a bunch of questions. Okay. So Barbara, you may want to take a look at my consult page. Go ahead and get in contact with us, and we'll try to we'll get back in contact with you then. Okay. All right. Good luck to you. Thank you. I'm sorry to hear about your 15-year-old too. All right. Hello, Joyce. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Marty. I have started IVC to treat Lyme. After the third one, I felt sick, muscle aches, headaches, nausea, bladder pain, weakness. Why do you think this? Also, I am lacking both MTHFR genes. Thank you. Joyce, I may be being foolish here, but I'm not sure what the initials IVC mean. Unless you mean IV vitamin C. I can say IV vitamin C. If you mean IV vitamin C at very, very high doses, about 30 grams to 50 grams. That compares to, a pill. Usually vitamin C pills are a gram, 1,000 milligrams. Okay, so IV vitamin C would be 30 to 50 times that kind of a dose. Vitamin C at low doses is an antioxidant. At high doses like this, turns into an oxidizing agent. Oxidizing agents damage cell membranes, including germ cell membranes. We are protected, our cells can be protected against that effect because our cells have antioxidants. Germs, on the other hand, don't make antioxidants, so they're going to be more susceptible to damage. And oxidizing agents also can damage the DNA of the germ too, okay? So if you got more muscle aches, headaches, nausea, bladder pain, and weakness, it may be that this is intravenous vitamin C, and I think that's what you mean. It may be that it's triggering a Herxheimer reaction which means it's triggering more cytokines to be made, and you're feeling worse as a result of that. Okay. For ideas on what to do about that, take a look at my article called Herxheimer Reaction Inflammation Run Amok. But basically, the big thing you want to do is curcumin, 500 to 1,000 milligrams 3 times a day. You also want to get some glutathione started as well, too. But take a look at my articles on either cytokines or on Herxheimer reaction for information about that. Okay? All right. I hope I got the C that you're talking about correctly here. All right. Thank you. Hello, McKay. Let's see. My hair has been falling out for about a year. It's now about an inch back all the way around my hairline. I have a number of pain issues and feel awful all the time, so this isn't my biggest concern. But when you feel bad, it's hard to deal with any ideas. So yeah, McKay. One thing, so hair loss, your doctors should do a basic workup for hair loss, which is check iron levels. If you have low iron, you're going to have hair loss. And so a way to measure iron is to measure the storage form of iron in the body. That's a chemical called ferritin. If your ferritin is less than 40, you need to be on iron supplementation, and that can help. Second thing is they need to assess you for whether you have low thyroid or high thyroid. Either way, you can have hair loss as part of that too. So there's some basic steps that need to be done, okay? Another thing in the world of Lyme that can lead to hair loss, some medicines have hair loss side effects. So for instance, I had a patient that lost hair when we did a treatment with an antifungal medicine called Lamisil. So you need to have your doctors look at the medicines you're taking to see if, as a side effect, do they lead to hair loss. Finally, babesia. If you have babesia also can lead to hair loss too. And so if you have babesia, that needs to be treated as well too. All right. So those are some thoughts for you. Thank you for that question. Hello, Lori. Let's see. Last time I listened to you, you were not a fan of ozone. Has that opinion remained? Yeah, I'm not actually. So the ozone that you're mentioning and the high dose vitamin C that I just talked about and hydrogen peroxide are all oxidizing agents, okay? And oxidizing agents, again, work by damaging fat membranes, including the fat membranes of the germ and potentially us, all right? Now, in theory, we are protected because our cells make antioxidants. Germs tend not to, so they're most susceptible to damage. The problem, though, is that there's been no long-term studies done about repeated use of oxidizing agents. And I am concerned that repeated use of oxidizing agents will actually lead to cell damage and potential harm down the road. So I'm okay if people do these kind of treatments like maybe 5-6 times. I probably would not be doing more than that because we just don't have enough studies to know about safety of using oxidizing agents on an ongoing basis in a person. Okay? All right. The other thing I will also be honest with you about too, in general, I have had people that have gone to clinics where they do the oxidizing agent treatments and that even though they may get benefit, those benefits are short-lived. They don't persist. Okay? So I know Invita's doing it. I know Spinagle's doing it. I happen to get a lot of patients that come from those clinics where we got to jump back in with antibiotics. Okay. All right. Thank you for that question. Hello, McKay. Let's see. Also been on Malarone for almost 7 months, 4 pills, 3 days a week. I spoke to my doctor after your last webinar and asked why I was on and off this versus on every day. I didn't get a good response. Anything I can tell him to show this comes back in 24 hours, so pulsing is not the best option. I don't actually have any research on that one, McKay. I mean, I don't have anything off the top of my head. I have seen articles on that before, but I don't have one that I can just give you off the top of my head here. But I think you were just asking about hair loss. It could be your Babesia that's leading to that ongoing hair loss too. Okay. So what McKay is asking here is I recommend, I think if I remember the question from last week, your physician's pulsing your Malarone, and I am saying that's not a good idea because Babesia replicates quickly. And if you're starting and stopping, the germ's going to come back fast. I find it best to treat for Babesia with an ongoing, uninterrupted treatment, basically. Okay? All right. Thanks for that question, McKay, and good luck to you. Hello, Lisa. Hi. 2 tick scenarios for you. First case, mom removed tick from child, tick tested, and negative for Lyme. Told no worries for co-infections, no antibiotics. Child was on 10 days of antibiotics for ear infection prior. Second case, tick on person, less than 24 hours, no antibiotics, proper treatment. Boy, it's a hard question. These are. Let me just give you some background because I would need to also ask both of them more questions. Okay, so first of all, although the infectious disease doctors state in their materials, and the CDC says this too, that a tick has to be attached for 36 hours to transmit Lyme, that's wrong. A tick can be attached for any length of time and transmit Lyme. The odds go up if it's been attached for 36 hours or more, but a tick can transmit Lyme even with shorter periods of contact. Okay, so number one, even though these are less than 24 hours, there is a chance. I would have greater concern, though, of transmission if it was 36 hours or more. Okay. Number two, you have to consider where you are in the world that you got your tick bite. All right. So, for instance, in New Jersey, where studies show that about 95% of ticks carry Lyme, I am absolutely going to want to put a kid or a mom or a dad on antibiotics for even short-term tick attachments because there's a 95% chance that that tick had Lyme. Okay. All right. Now, out here in Washington State, where I practice, we don't have any good tick studies. They haven't done them. I don't know what the true prevalence of Lyme is here, but I can kind of guess. And how I can guess is that there have been good tick studies done in Northern California by UC Davis about maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I think now. And those tick studies showed that 40% of ticks in Northern California carry Lyme. All right, that was a number of years ago. Okay, now how does that relate to up here in Seattle? Well, ticks like to jump on birds and fly. Okay, birds are the jets that carry ticks up and down the West Coast out here. And we're on the bird flyways. We're on the same bird flyways that California is on. So if it's 40% down there, we may be up to 40% here. I bet it's lower than that. But still, I consider the odds, okay? Now, the decision to use antibiotics of a tick bite is very personal, all right? Because keep in mind, every time you use an antibiotic, there is the risk of upsetting good bacteria in your gut. That good bacteria in your gut is responsible for detox, is responsible for immune system regulation, responsible for a lot of stuff, okay? Now, when somebody has known Lyme and they're really, really sick, the risk of antibiotics upsetting the gut bacteria is outweighed by the benefit that they're going to get from antibiotics, all right? For something like this, though, you have to have that discussion with the patient, all right? My own preference, and this is just because I see a lot of disaster. I take care of the sick here in my clinic, right? I'm taking care of the people that if they just gotten an antibiotic in the first few weeks of their tick bite, they wouldn't be sitting in my office. So I am extremely biased in what I'm about ready to say. My own bias is if anyone has a tick bite for any period of attachment, I'm going to use 3 weeks of antibiotics. But when I engage a person in a discussion, I also get into odds discussions, okay? So that tick bite in New Jersey has a 95% chance of transmitting Lyme. Because 95% of ticks carry Lyme in New Jersey, all right? Out here, it's a little bit less. And then I describe to them there's concerns that could happen with antibiotics too in terms of upsetting the good bacteria in the gut. And so then I engage them in a conversation around that, considering risk and benefits, okay? In somebody that is 8 years of age or older, the ideal antibiotic to use is doxycycline. The reason that is the ideal antibiotic to use is doxycycline not only treats the Lyme infection, but it can take care of anaplasma, Ehrlichia, Bartonella, and even Babesia in an acute setting. Okay. If it is a child under 8 years of age, I might use Zithromax or I might use amoxicillin. There is the reason we tend not to use doxycycline in children under 8 years of age is there's a concern of staining of the teeth with doxycycline. But what's interesting is the Centers for Disease Control has gone back. If you go to their website, type doxycycline and Rocky Mountain spotted fever in children. Just do a research on that. And the Centers for Disease Control now for Rocky Mountain spotted fever recommends doxycycline even in children under 8 years of age, because they have gone back and re-looked at the data that suggested teeth staining from doxycycline. And they think that for short-term use, that teeth staining does not actually take place. So I'm even starting to use doxycycline in children under 8 years of age, even though most doctors would probably run away from doing that. But if you look at the data compiled by the Centers for Disease Control, as they went back and re-looked at this around the issue of Rocky Mountain spotted fever, that doxy is the absolute best medicine. They now recommend that in children under 8 years of age. Okay? All right. Lisa, thank you for that question, and good luck. Hello, Wendy. Let's see. Hello, Dr. Ross. I'm experiencing escalating hair loss, hormone imbalance, and thyroid have been ruled out as much as is possible. European Borrelia can cause acrodermatitis, chronic atropicans, Herxheimer hair loss. Have you seen this in the United States? Again, so the issue of hair loss, again, I would make sure, I know they've looked at the hormones, make sure they've also looked at an iron level. Okay, you have to do that. Go back and look at the medications that you're on, see if any of them has ever been associated with hair loss. If they have been, stop those. Consider if you have Babesia. And as a rare thing, I will see people that I'm treating for Lyme that have unexplained hair loss, and maybe it actually is coming from Lyme. So it's possible. All right. I hope that answers your question. Hey, Lori, I'm chuckling over Lori's question here. Just I'll show everyone Lori's question. Lori, you think you see a kitty. It's not a kitty. I'll show you what you're seeing here. Let me get him just a minute here. Hey, mister. Oh, it's Halo. It's not mister. All right. This is one of my two Basingis that you all may have seen hopping around back here. Okay. This is Halo. And Halo has a brother, Thor, that hangs out with me too. Okay. So I think the kitty that you've been seeing is one of these two. And they come to work with me, actually. They see patients with me. If somebody wants them out, they get to be out. Otherwise, I usually keep them in a kennel under my desk when I'm seeing patients. But they get to go to work with Dad. And during the webinars, they start hopping around quite a bit because this is usually the time that I'm out walking them. So they're usually expressing their displeasure with me about this time. So it wasn't a kitty. That was Halo, or you might have been seeing Thor. Okay. All right. I told Halo I was going to turn her into a TV star here earlier tonight. All right, let's see. Where are we here? Hello, April. Let's see. I've been diagnosed by an integrative doctor who used autonomic response testing. They picked up parasite and Lyme, although he waited to confirm Lyme after clearing the parasites. Do you think I should test via IGeneX to get a second opinion? They will not use antibiotics. Okay, so autonomic response testing, everyone, is a form of kinesiology, basically. And what it will happen is a practitioner that's using it will feel for changes in the pulse, the energy of the pulse, when they introduce substances into the energy field of a person. And if they feel changes in the pulse as they introduce something, then that gives them diagnostic clues, okay? Now, I got to be honest with you. So ART, I think there are some people that do it really well. but I think the majority of practitioners don't do it that well. We have a good practitioner out here. We've got a physician in the area named Dietrich Klinghardt. Many of you may have heard of him. He is one of the people that came up with this testing technique. I think he does a good job. I think a lot of other people trained in the technique, I just don't see good outcomes from using that as a way of guiding treatment or even diagnosing. So I'm a big believer in actually getting testing when it comes to the world of Lyme to see if you have it, especially before you jump down the rabbit hole of doing antibiotics for years or and the expenses and all that too. Okay, so I would definitely suggest getting a quality Lyme test done. All right. Thanks for that question. Let's see here. That's it for me for tonight, everyone. I'm going to call it quits. So I've had a good time visiting with you, and we'll have another webinar next week. There'll be another one the week after that if we have enough people that sign up. I hope you all are having a good holiday season here as best as you can while having and battling chronic Lyme. I've enjoyed being with you here tonight. Pay attention to your emails tomorrow at about 6 to 6:30 a.m. Seattle time. So again, we're on Pacific Standard Time out here. You should get an email from me with has links to the recording of tonight's webinar, as well as in there will be the link to go ahead and sign up for the next webinar too. In a second here, I'm going to take you over to the Treat Lyme book. For those of you that want to subscribe to get all the great information that I have there, please do so. I'm going to land you on the page where you can go ahead and do that. Also, you can use it there to find out information about my consults or any other piece of information you want there as well too. Keep in mind, when you support the Treat Lyme book, you support my ability to keep doing these webinars for you as well too. So I appreciate any support you give me there. All right. Take care, everyone. Good night.